be speaking in one of those areas that is relevant to all of us, which is recovery in whatever it may be as far as self-improvement that we want for ourselves. I look forward to hearing more from Vicki. Please welcome her. Don't forget to do that.
Well, have you ever felt yourself feeling totally powerless over a situation in your lives? You lost a loved one. You may be in a work situation where the boss has been emotionally abusing you for some time and there's nothing you can do about it. Or you're in a job situation where it's a dead end, but you need to be in it because you need the health insurance. These are situations that you can feel powerless in. And no matter what circumstance you're in that you feel powerless, it's very difficult to deal with. Some of us choose to deal with it by ourselves. And when we do, sometimes we find ourselves isolating away from others. Or we may find ourselves turning to the internet or turning to video games obsessively, or maybe even alcohol or drugs. What I hope you will get out of this is that no matter what the circumstances, we all have difficulties and we all should be able to relate to ourselves. Specifically, what I'm hoping you find is that the 3 steps of any recovery program can be used in your daily lives in working through difficult situations. I'll tell you a little bit about my story. When I was young, I lived in a household alone with my mother who abused alcohol and drugs consistently. I was afraid all the time. I was different from the other kids. I went to school and I was always late. But I didn't know anything about grooming. I also had to get ready for school by myself. I was afraid so much that I used to stand in my window and look out and ask Santa Claus to take my mom away. Well, my mom died when I was 7, and it was my fault because I wished her away. I later moved here to Wenatchee to live with my mom, or my stepmom and dad. It was a wonderful situation, but I was so afraid they were going to send me away that I did everything in my power to make them like me. I acted happy. I sat on their lap. I told them how much I loved them. And really, I had nothing to worry about, but in my mind I did. In school, I still felt like I was different. I was on the outside looking in. But then I started to discover that I had talents. And one of those was performing in talent shows. And in junior high, I discovered gymnastics. And from that point forward into college, I was a gymnast, and I could hide all of my self-insecurities behind that image. It was wonderful. Well, in high school, I had wonderful friends. I had wonderful Christian friends that were nerds at the same time. It was a really safe place to be. But for some reason, I was attracted to the bad boys. The ones that there was something familiar about them that I didn't understand. And that was the fact that they were drinking and that type of thing. And going back to my childhood, that's what was familiar to me. So with them, I began drinking. And from the very first drink, I drank alcoholically. And as a result, I went into other things. I started smoking cigarettes. I started smoking pot. And at that point, my gymnastics was beginning to fail. And I no longer had the other friends. By the time I hit college, I was completely out of control. And I ended up quitting gymnastics. What that did is it made me feel ashamed. Infinitesimal, whatever that word is. I had no positive self-image. I hated myself. And then fast forward another 10 years, and at that point, I was totally powerless over my addiction. At age 29, almost 30, I finally discovered that I was powerless over alcohol and my life had become unmanageable. That's the first step of the Alcoholics Anonymous recovery program. And what I find is it applies to everything that I am powerless over. Because when I admit that is when I become honest with myself. So I admitted I was powerless over alcohol, but that wasn't the only thing I was powerless over. I was powerless over the fact that I had such a poor self-image. I needed to please everybody. I hid behind self-image, and I was self-destructive. I dealt with those things later on in my recovery program. Now I want you to think to yourself, are there things that you feel absolutely powerless over? So I opened that door. And in my addiction to alcohol and drugs, once I became honest with myself, it also opened the door to my life. And that brought me to the second step, and that is came to believe that a power outside of myself could restore me to sanity. And I thought to myself, insane? Me? No way. But really, when I kept doing the same things over and over again, I kept trying to change this or change that or fix this or fix that, and I always had the same type of response and everything. That is the definition to insanity. So, I have been stuck, people like me have been stuck feeling different, feeling like that we had to be in control. But once we let go and realize that something outside of ourselves could restore us to sanity, that was a really big thing. And in my case, originally, I used the AA group as my first thing that I looked outside of myself to. They seemed to like me. They wanted me to succeed. They loved me until I could love myself. And that was a big deal. And so after, what the point is that I am not God. And whether I knew it or not, I was acting as God. But when I let go of that, that is when I became humbled. And anyway, I became humbled and finally admitted that. So when I got out of the way and stopped playing God, that is when I grow in my life and my life has meaning. But it depends on a daily reprieve. The third step made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. What we have to realize is so many of us were tainted about religion. We thought people were hypocrites who went to church. They judged us, that type of thing. Most people in recovery actually do have a hard time with organized religion. And I was one of them. I searched and searched. But until I actually came to the one faith that I have now, where I have a God that loves me no matter what, that's always with me, He's unconditional. He helped me through the most difficult of times, and He brought me to a new way of life. Now, just in those 3 steps, which we incorporate honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness, were we able to lay a positive foundation, and I think it's a very positive foundation. So my hope is that you see how those 3 steps, when applied to every circumstance, can be utilized by yourselves. I hope you can take 1 or 2 of the concepts home with you to use at some point down the road. Thank you.